Hello and welcome back to another video with me, Meoni, for Final Fantasy XIV. The preliminary patch notes for 5.1 went live today, the 25th of October, and are absolutely enormous. Obviously, we can't cover everything in this because we're trying to bite-size this as much as possible and summarize the most important elements of it. So we're going to pick out some of the highlighted areas of text and, of course, some of the main elements in this patch and sort of brush over some of the other stuff. So when I say I'm brushing over some of the other stuff, so we're not going to be looking at direct class change stuff, so any potency changes, anything like that, any of the major PvP changes to each job individually, nothing like that. So we're going to be looking at sort of like summarized sections of each of these areas. If you do want to read the patch notes in their entirety, please go and check them out. The link will be in the description as usual. I did actually attempt to do a full patch note reading, but it took me 3 hours and I didn't think that was worthwhile to show to you guys today, because who has 3 hours to watch a guy read patch notes? So let's move on and actually get through these. So included in the patch is new MSQ quest lines and storylines. Included in this is the quest that start at the Rising Stones in Mordona. That's where this carries on from. New side story quests, including the unlock of the Nier Automata Alliance raid, the Copied Factory, which is unlocked in Colucia. There's a new custom deliveries client, Kai Shear, that you can unlock in Yulemore. The Pixie Beast Tribe, which is unlocked in the Crystarium, which has a level sync feature to give you experience to your alts, much like Shadowbringer's side quests. And there's the new Game Plus feature, which is unlocked by completing Heavensward, and then you need to go to Western Fanland to speak to a wistful Whitebeard NPC to unlock the feature. You can then select chapters of storyline and toggle between the new Game Plus progression and your current progression in Shadowbringers with the click of the button. This means that you can only queue for Shadowbringers duties, for example, whilst in your normal mode. However, you can queue for a dungeon, say in your Shadowbringers mode, and then switch to your new Game Plus mode to do some questing. But the feature will automatically switch you back to current progression when the duty pops, and you will not be able to do it with the other progression. You can also change the difficulty of various MSQ battles you come across during the storyline from a selection of normal, easy, and very easy modes, so you can blast through them if you only wanted to see the storyline, or normal mode to get the full experience of those battles once again. So for the most part, the next few sections are just small tidbits of information. For example, for guild leaves, the number of items required for crafter and fisher leaves have been adjusted, i.e. they've been reduced, so it's easier to turn those in. The maximum store of bicolor gemstones for the fate grind in Shadowbringers has been increased from 500 to 1,000, so you cap less frequently, and as a result of that, there are new items available for exchange. So if you're like me and you've already got all of the rewards from Shadowbringers, you might want to go back and look at those vendors again, because there are new items. As a further reduction of that, and because we're already at like mostly level 80 now as a community, the shared fate rank required for certain items has been reduced, so you actually do less fates for more rewards as a whole, because obviously we're not using fates to level anymore, or at least the majority of people won't be. So there's less fates to be done. Treasure Hunt, obviously new items are being added to the Dungeons of Gaia, lots of crafting materials for the new Glamour, for example. In relation to Grand and Free companies, new craftable items have been added to the company workshop, including submarine parts. That's because there are new subaquatic voyages, there are new areas have been added, new items have been added, and a maximum submersible rank raised from 60 to 65. So if you're all about your submarine fleet, then this will make you very happy. The number of items required for level 79 to 80 provisioning and supply missions has also been increased, and the number of items required for certain fisher provisioning and supply missions has also been reduced. In relation to housing, obviously with 5.1 we're getting wards 19 through 21 added. This will be restricted to free companies only. You will actually still be able to relocate your free company to one of the new plots if you so desire as of 5.1 coming out. And indeed, that new housing will be available as soon as the patch goes live. They don't have any plans to delay it any further. The other important thing to note here is that the purchase of private estates will be made available on certain worlds, so Spriggan and Twintania, which are the brand new 2 servers for EU and America respectively. 1 through 18 will be available for your purchase privately on those new servers with Shadowbringers. However, private estates still cannot be purchased in wards 19 through 21, and again that is still restricted to free companies. With a lot of free company stuff, a load of new furnishings for your houses come into the game, game, and a lot of the furnishing design contest winners have been entered in finally, including this wall fountain, which looks pretty cool, and this small oriental garden for indoor spaces that I can't wait to get my hands on. We also have a picture here of outdoor furnishings, including the market stalls that were actually shown during the last live letter to encourage RP, and indeed you can put your retainers behind them and sell some stuff, so that looks even cooler. For further emphasis on roleplay, we now have the ability to remain seated while interacting with furnishings. This includes, but is not limited to, the food buffs. When you eat food at a table, no longer will your character springboard directly upwards. She'll remain seated whilst eating, so that increases the immersion for roleplay purposes. However, they do say this change does not apply to outdoor furnishings, wheel stands, flower pots, gold saucer minigames, vendor NPCs, and mannequins. And speaking of mannequins, we finally get the higher and Ellison models for mannequins option on the actual mannequin itself. Of course, we've got new orchestrion rolls. I really cannot wait to get veneer stuff. Some of that music's amazing. We have new aquarium fishes, including this giant rainbow trout thing there that you see. New paintings, new flower pots, and new seeds for flower pots, rather, that you can get from material suppliers, which look pretty cool. And we also have new estate tags. So we have the Visitor's Welcome, which is like a big arm-stretched dude sort of standing there, and a bakery icon with a loaf of bread. They've changed some of the previous estate tags, so instead of a sapling for garden, it's now a small tree. Aquarium, it used to be a fish, now it's a fish in a tank with bubbles. Venue used to be an exclamation mark, and it's now one of those like clacker boards and a star. I believe that's what the icon is supposed to be. The Gold Saucer sees a few changes, including the addition of the Slices Right, which is the Jimbo Gate event, which basically involves you dodging bamboo falling over, avoiding lots of mechanics, and indeed there's also a bit where you have to guess where the MGP is under a moving cup, and also avoid Daigoro whilst picking up MGP on the floor, otherwise he'll knock you out. It looks like a really cool thing. As a result of this, the gate events have been adjusted in the schedule. Cliffhanger, Air Force One, and Leap of Faith, or every hour on the hour. Hourly 20 minutes past the hour are Anyway to Win Blows, the Slices Right, and Leap of Faith, and hourly 40 minutes past the hour are Anyway to Win Blows, the Slices Right, and Air Force One. Some people might be pretty sad here because the gate skin change we can believe in has been removed from the Gold Saucer. I'm not a fan of this personally. I'm not a fan of ever removing these gates because I think they're all awesome. But there you go. That's something that's being removed in this patch. If you're into Mahjong, then you'll be happy to know there is a high resolution mode, like a new layout that looks all crisp and really nicely detailed. A few other changes include, in the event you're disconnected in the middle of a game of Mahjong during your turn, the game will resume on your turn provided time for that hand has not expired. They've also got an opponent list being added to Mahjong, so the opponent list will display the name of players with whom you are matched. If both you and the opponent are playing on the PS4, you will also be able to see their PSN ID. In accordance with this change, they say PSN IDs will no longer be displayed at the top of the Doman Mahjong UI. They've also added lots of new Triple Triad cards that should come without question, and new NPC opponents to battle for. So we're on to the miscellaneous part of this before we get to the meat and potatoes of some of the changes. And indeed, scenario mode has been added to the trust system. This is essentially what you had when you were leveling the first time in Shadowbringers, where you didn't give them experience or anything like that. They just sort of progressed as you progressed. That is a new scenario mode now, which allows you to do the new Dungeon in 5.1's thing without having to level all of your stuff up. They do say that avatar NPCs will not get experience in this scenario mode, and there's a toggle at the top there between scenario and avatars. Bard Perform gets a load of changes. We looked at this briefly, but there's a metronome feature with the ability to change the beats per minute, and also we have ensemble feature, so you can actually group up with other people and make really cool sounding or horrific sounding things, hopefully in time with each other. We also have, BPM settings to go with that as well. And we also have what I'm personally very interested in is the performance assistance mode, where essentially you select a track. I'm not sure what tracks are available, and it's sort of like Ozu or like the choir event from last year's Christmas event. Sort of pops up on screen, the keyboard lights up, and you play along to the tune to try and to hit those notes, which is kind of cool. They use a world apart as an example here in a screenshot, so I can't wait to see how many songs are actually available there. There's also new sound effects. We have trumpet, trombone, tuba, horn, and saxophone, so all of the brass, and hopefully the brass isn't those horrible MIDI sounds we get in other games. Wondrous Tales has had lots of new stuff added as rewards from both gold and silver certificates of commendation, and indeed the bronze ones got adjusted as well, because now Wondrous Tales includes Eden's Gate, so that's something else you can cross off your list each week, adding to your Wondrous Tales by just doing your weekly cap of Eden's Gate. They do say because of 5.1, the Garrow collaboration has ended, and as such, players will no longer be able to obtain any of the Garrow-inspired PvP gear, mounts, titles, and achievements. This includes the vendors, the disreputable priest, and of course the gold sorcerer attendant as well. And of course you will no longer be able to earn the Fatal Feast, Frontline Fury, and Furious Fatalities achievements. Any gear that you have earned though before 5.1 from this stuff, you will be able to get from a Calamity Salvager after 5.1. So rest assured, if you have it and you accidentally delete it, you should be able to get it back from a vendor at the Calamity Salvager, in theory. There's a lot of changes in relation to potency changes for jobs here. I'm not going to go into detail in this video because that should be reserved for a separate video entirely. It's quite a lengthy section. I advise you to go and read the patch notes in particular for those. So on to new stuff. The new dungeon, the Grand Cosmos, has been added. That's the MSQ dungeon. To actually access this, they're not letting you know it's part of the MSQ progression, but you will need an average item level of 430 or above and be level 80 on Disciple of War or Magic job. They've also implemented minimum item level requirements to the following dungeons. Now there's a list of dungeons, everything from the Dust Vigil in Heavensward to Mount Gould in Shadowbringers. I wasn't sort of aware that there wasn't a minimum item level requirement. I'm not sure why these are included. Perhaps someone can tell me in the comment section, but I was kind of under the impression there was already minimum item level stuff here, but there we go. There's new item level minimums to actually get into those dungeons. And of course we have the new trial, the Minstrel's Ballad, Hades Elegy it's called, which is obviously Hades Extreme, and with that we're getting a 450 average item level to be able to queue into that. And of course you will need to have completed Shadowbringers main storyline to actually go and talk to the minstreling wanderer in the Crystarium to unlock this duty. They've made some adjustments to Thorn March hard mode. Now Thorn March hard mode, not any other mode, but essentially when the Moogle's Guard Moogles are present on the field, damage dealt to Good King Moogle mod cannot exceed a certain threshold, and a maximum damage dealt by Memento Moogle has been reduced. So not only has wiping been made a lot more difficult in there, but Memento Moogle, the big ultimate, if you do it incorrectly and attack the king instead of the minions, will actually hit you for a lot less. Maybe it won't even kill you this time, I'm not really sure. But bear in mind this is only a hard mode change and doesn't mention the extreme mode, so I would presume that's still as it has always been. The weekly restriction on rewards in Eden's Gate has been removed, so that means you can go and free roll on whatever gear you want from the Eden's Gate normal stuff, because basically it's free reign now. However, your Blades of Early Antiquity will still be earned once per week upon the completion of the 4th boss in that wing. However, they have reduced the amount of Blades of Early Antiquity you need to actually get your lightweight tombstone for your weapon upgrade from 7 blades to 4, so if you're on the sort of edge of actually getting a weapon upgrade, now it should be a lot easier. They mention here they've resolved an issue in high-end duties wherein the timing of hard-end rage mechanics created discrepancies in the total length of the encounter for any given attempt. So if you have act or timers, or basically if you think something's going to happen and it doesn't happen, that's probably because the actual savage fights have been adjusted accordingly and certain things are on a different timer now. Whatever, if it needed to be fixed, it needed to be fixed, right? So they say the copied factory, the Alliance raid, will have a 435 item level requirement at level 80, and you will basically unlock that through the Colucia unlock storyline like I told you about earlier. You will actually get 2 cracked stellar clusters and a manufactured coin upon the completion of the run, and you'll be able to roll and win 1 item per week. You've got a 1 item per week lockout on an item you roll for. The manufactured coin is a collectible that you can exchange with Fafard, a new NPC in Yulmore, to actually enhance equipment purchased with your Allegan Tomestones of Phantasmagoria. So there's a way of upgrading your gear. They say that the items required to enhance equipment purchased with the Allegan Tomestones of Phantasmagoria, apart from just using the coins, so those Deep Shadow coatings and Deep Shadow twine, can actually be purchased from Xyle in the Crystarium with sacks of nuts, or with those manufactured coins in Yulmore with Fafard. So you have a choice of actually doing hunt marks to actually upgrade your gear, as well as doing your alliance raid. So if you want to do more hunts, then you've got more reason to do so. They've added the Echo to the Dancing Plague, the Crown of Immaculate, and the Dying Grasp, which is the end game 5.0 trial with Hades. They've added the Echo to those normal modes, up to 50%. They have a 25% Echo added to Dancing Plague Extreme and the Crown of Immaculate Extreme, and the Aurbon Monastery gets a 10% Echo buff, which I guess is better late than never, because obviously if you get that in your Alliance Roulette, it's quite a slog. It should be melted a lot faster now. An interesting point here is that players can now use the undersized party feature to participate in the Great Hunt and the Great Hunt Extreme. So if you still have, a few clears or 50 clears left to get your Rathalos mount, then you can actually do it unsynced now, which should be a complete doddle. This was a lot of fun when you couldn't do it unsynced. I had a lot of fun with my small community doing this, and it took us quite a while, and it was quite difficult and challenging and exciting, but we got our mounts in the end. Well, now you too, if you've been left out of that, can go and get your mount. They've adjusted Deep Dungeons. Players can now interrupt Malice, which is cast by mimics and quivering coffers, so there's less likelihood of you just wiping to that inside your Deep Dungeon runs. And they've changed Eureka. They've had some adjustments. I've been waiting for this. The Echo will now take effect upon entering the Forbidden Land of Eureka. Now here they don't actually mention any kind of percentage. They say this will increase your maximum HP, damage dealt, and healing potency. The Echo will not take effect whilst undertaking the Baldessian Arsenal Expedition, they stress, and it is now easier to spawn notorious monsters. And story quest completion is no longer required to ride mounts, so you can ride them straight off the bat. So yeah, it remains to be seen how much easier they've made Eureka. It's a lot more difficult considering there's less people doing it. Hopefully the Echo's enough to push that, and yeah, I guess the easier spawn of notorious monsters, we'll have to just try it out when we can get on the patch. So moving on, the requirements for spawning certain elite marks has been adjusted, so it'll be easier to get your hunt marks to spawn open in the open areas, and the resistances of certain monsters have also been adjusted. Perhaps they were probably resisting a bit too much, and that's been changed accordingly. Exploratory missions, so we're talking about Diadem here, have been removed, so they're no longer in the timers menu, in the duty, in the party finder, and achievements related to exploratory missions will no longer be obtainable. This is in relation to the changes coming with the basically fourth iteration of Diadem, I believe it is now, that comes with Ishgard Restoration, which is going to be exclusively, I quote, a gathering island, end quote, that they said in the last live letter, and essentially the combat-related exploratory missions have been removed. And of course, the duty ruler expert has been changed to include the Grand Cosmos with the other three that we currently have, Amarok, the Twinning, and Academia Oneida. It's always nice to have a fourth duty to be able to do in Expert Roulette. Should alleviate some of the boredom. And the required average item level to register for Duty Roulette Expert's gone up to 430 from 410 average item level. And of course, Mentor Roulette gets the Grand Cosmos and the Copied Factory like usual. That's gone up to 435 item level requirement from 425. And Minstrel's Ballad Hades Elegy has been added to the list of challenges in Stone Sky Sea if you want to go and practice your deeps on a dummy that's supposed to be a little bit like Hades. And a final bit here before we go on to PvP, they say enmity generated by the actions Choco Drop and Choco Strike has been increased, so I guess that means your Chocobo is a little bit more helpful. So in relation to PvP, they don't actually have any of the job adjustments here. They say that they're waiting until the 29th of October to actually update all of that, so I would imagine they're quite big. However, there is some significant changes to other elements of PvP. The ranking for each Grand Company will now be displayed on the results screen. In relation to Frontline exclusively, players can now queue for the daily challenge Frontline as a party. The party size when registering is now limited to 4 players only. Mount speed has been increased across the board within Frontlines, it says, and the following adjustments have been made to the return skill. The recast time has been completely removed. However, taking damage will always interrupt the casting of return. So you can't just return if you're in combat, and return doesn't have a cast time, so you can quickly get back to your camp. They say the following adjustments were made to the recovery from incapacitation. The waiting time to return to battle after incapacitation is now fixed at 5 seconds, and when this countdown reaches 0, players will be moved to their team's landing point automatically. You don't have to press a button any further. The following adjustments have been made to the adrenaline gauge, they say. Defeating players on enemy teams will no longer contribute to filling the adrenaline gauge of your party members, and players can now fill their adrenaline gauge via assists. So in theory, that means you should be filling your adrenaline gauge much easier, because most of your kills will be assists anyway, because of the amount of, zerging in Frontline. So in theory, we should see, I guess, more like limit breaks being used, something like that. But yeah, that's quite an interesting change. Various maps have been changed. When you're doing Borderlands Secure, icons will now be displayed on the map 30 seconds prior to the monsters spawning on the field. And with Fields of Glory Shatter, icons will now be displayed on the map 30 seconds prior to the Icebound Tome Lift spawning on the field as well. Apparently Frontline will no longer start if we don't have 72 players. This should probably increase the queue times for Frontline, but probably make it a lot fairer, because previously it was allowing people to queue in, and one of the teams didn't have like an entire party, which kind of sucked, so that's been changed. Battle High has been adjusted. Now there's actually a Battle High gauge that they talked about previously, as you see on the screen here, and the strength of Battle High is now based on your rating. Every knockout and assist you earn contributes to your rating up to a maximum of 100 points. Your points earned will be reduced by half when you're incapacitated. As an example, 100 points, which is rank 5, will give you a damage dealt and increased healing potency by 50%. Players under the effect of Battle High no longer actually appear on the map, and players will no longer receive a bonus to their team's tactical rating for defeating opponents under the effect of Battle High. And finally, an icon will appear next to their player name, indicating their Battle High rank, and we have those badges there with the red one on the end being 100 points. So now we move on to the items section of the patch notes. They say lots of new items have been added. Obviously, they give a demonstration here, presumably of what's the new dungeon set here, with the sort of like wolf-like outfits. That's probably from a Grand Cosmos. I don't know where else it could be. And the gear design contest winner entry, the Cyborg Ninja stuff, has been implemented. They've made a full set for every single role, and that will be available from PvP. Lots of new recipes have been added to the game, as you would expect a patch of this size, including lots of new glamour. They show off this sort of big coat here with the fur lining. I really like that one. That might be from materials that we get from the new drops inside the Dungeons of Gaia, but we'll have to wait and see. There's so many different sources of items now. It's going to be quite interesting to see where they're all from. They've changed how some items can be sold, desynthesized, submitted as expert deliveries, and converted into material. A lot of this is going to change, and there's lots of new crafter actions been added, and a lot of them have been homogenized. It would be pointless to go through every single one of these, so I really would advise you to coming to this section of the patch notes and reading it yourself after you've watched this video. There's just a lot here. And, the following crafter actions have been removed, for example, and there's a list. So we have Steady Hand, Master's Men 2, Steady Hand 2, etc. A lot of significant abilities that you would usually use in crafting and gathering have just been removed from the game. They're focusing on trying to simplify crafting and gathering and make it so you rely less on macros. So we'll have to wait and see. How badly have they changed crafting and gathering? Is it still going to be as exciting and interesting as it was previously? We'll have to just try it out. They say additional actions have also been removed, so ingenuity, rapid synthesis, stuff like that. They've changed some of the crafter action names from manipulation 2, etc. to just manipulation, so those ranks have been just homogenized into one thing now. Same with careful synthesis 3 is just careful synthesis, and there's some new crafter traits as well at like various levels. So yeah, it's quite a significant change. One of the biggest additions though to crafting is actually the crafting log. This is something they're incredibly happy with internally, and something that I'm quite pleased to see. This basically means that you can click on an item you want to craft, and then you can click on a tree, and it will show you a crafting tree of every single part of that craft, where all of the subsequent pieces for the required pieces and their pieces are actually acquired from and what you need. So this is basically the equivalent of using a Wikipedia in the game. And obviously it's a direct method to try and reduce the amount of time you spend outside of a game researching and more time actually playing the game. So that's a really good feature, great quality of life changes, and I cannot wait to get my hands on that. They also say the overall experience points gained for crafting classes has been increased. They're trying to get more people into crafting and gathering with all of the new changes, and of course they're going to increase the amount of experience you get. They say quick synthesis has been adjusted as following. Quick synthesis will no longer fail provided you meet the recommended craftsmanship requirement. Increases to control will now provide reasonable improvements to the chance of receiving high quality items, and when using quick synthesis to craft more than one item, the time required per synthesis is then reduced. Really nice changes there. The Soul of a Crafter also now increases your CP by 15, so that's kind of nice. Items used for collectible exchanges will always be crafted as collectibles, so you don't have to remember to toggle the button on and off. Hallelujah. The amount of times I've crafted collectibles and not pressed that button, and then I've just ended up with a normal, like, high quality item I can't use. Oof, that's a really nice change. The following adjustments have been made to desynthesis. Desynthesis is no longer able to fail regardless of your desynthesis level. They say the requirements to unlock desynthesis have not changed. The combined total level limit for desynthesis has been removed. As a result of this change, desynthesis levels can no longer go down, and it is possible to level desynthesis to maximum for all crafting classes. That's actually really interesting. So you can just have them all instead of trying to prioritize a few. When your desynthesis level is higher than that of the item you're desynthing, the number of items yielded is increased, and there is a chance to procure rare items. The leveling rate for desynthesis has also been increased. The level cap for desynth has been raised to 460 from 450, and the careful desynthesis parameter has been changed to desynthesis skill gain. And there we have a picture there of someone trying to desynth a bronze chess piece. So there's lots of new gatherer actions added. Again, we're going to have to skip past a lot of this stuff. It's just going to take up the entire video, but as you can see, they're really focusing hard on homogenizing and simplifying things and making it just more fun, I would imagine, to play. Like they have said, though, a lot of people do rely on macros. They say the overall experience points gained for all gathering classes has also been increased, so they do want to encourage more gatherers in the game. Overall gathering rates for gathering classes has been increased. The special conditions set by certain gathering nodes and the items yielded by them have also been adjusted. And a quick gathering mode has been added. Quick gathering allows you to continuously gather from a specific spot of a gathering node until all the gathering attempts have been exhausted. So essentially you tick this little box on this UI picture that they're showing here. You click on it once and it will just basically harvest all of the bright flax off of that until there is no more there. So you don't have to do it manually anymore by clicking. Really nice, simple quality of life change that, you know, kind of nice. It's just nice to have, isn't it? The following adjustments have been made to items not registered in your gathering log. When you gather an item for the first time, the gathering rate will no longer be lowered, and items not recorded in your gathering log will no longer appear as unknown in the gathering window. An icon will now be displayed next to items that have not been recorded in the gathering log. Another really good quality of life change. There's so much in this patch to just make crafting and gathering just easier to look at and more appealing just as a beginner or a veteran at this point. It's quite interesting. The required level to equip the following items has been lowered from 11 to 10, so that includes the bronze sledgehammer and bronze scythe apparently, and the level at which players can see gathering points has also been adjusted. So you can actually see level 10 gathering nodes after level 5 now, but before it was level 6 onwards, and they go through the entire game, which, you know, makes it a little bit easier to plan ahead, I suppose. Items at unspoiled and legendary nodes will no longer appear out of reach, so even easier to get those. So you can imagine the marketplace is going to crash in places on a lot of the harder to get items from legendary nodes, for example, but, you know, as a result, it is easier to get them if you need them for something. And the item yield from ethereal reduction has also been adjusted. The search for items option has been added to the subcommand menu in the gathering window. There are new miner and botanist gathering points added in 5.1, new items added to gathering points as well, new fish, and players can obviously speak with Kaishir in Yulmore to do those custom deliveries we talked about earlier. Quite a lot of stuff then. So let's move on from something that isn't gathering and crafting. The following additions and adjustments have been made to the Glamour Dresser. This is something interesting. A checkbox to view only items equipable with your current race and gender has been added, so you can sort through those if you happen to have stuff in there from when you were last a male Makote, for example. You can filter those out. A filter to view gear for specific classes and jobs has also been added, which is a lot more useful for when I use it. And a checkbox to filter out gear set items has also been added, so you don't accidentally add something to the Glamour Dresser that you're currently using as a gear set, which is a great idea. They say new mounts have been added. We looked at these the other day on the special site video, but we have the purple dragon there from Hades Extreme and the Unknown Origins Lion mount, which is a Sin Eater mount that I'm incredibly hyped to try and find out where that's from. The following mounts can now be used to fly without completing the quest I Believe I Can Fly. That includes the Legacy Chocobo, the Fat Chocobo, the Parade Chocobo, the original Fat Chocobo, and the Fat Black Chocobo. By the way, we still don't have the Fat Black Chocobo in the European regions. Do they hate us or something? I really want my big fat cock. That sounded really bad. Let's move on. So lots of new items, including new Chocobo Boarding. That is a really nice looking outfit for your Chocobo. I love Boarding Collection. I've got all of them so far. I don't know where that's going to be from. Probably in a new dungeon or Alliance raid or something. I want it. That's all I'm going to say, as I just want it. The display and listing of Chocobo Boarding in the companion window has also been adjusted, presumably easier to go through things. And new minions have been added, so they show the meerkat and this beautiful flying goldfish there. I love that goldfish. I need that. I said on Twitter, I'll do anything in the world possible. Just tell me what it is that I need to do, Square Enix, and I will do it wholeheartedly. Even if it's something ridiculously grindy, I will do it. I think a lot of other people will as well. That is a fantastic minion selection, and that's only the tip of the iceberg of probably what's in 5.1. They say an item exchange to upgrade crafted item level 450 equipment to item level 460 has been added in this patch. This is a vendor Hillison in Yulmore, and Yulmorian certificates of import and Calusian Rain have been added. Yulmorian certificates of import can be received in exchange for item level 450 equipment from Hillison. Calusian Rain can be received from Hillison in exchange for elegant tomestones of Goesha. So they say prepare the requisite number of Yulmorian certificates of import and Calusian Rain for your desired gear, and trade the Yulmorian certificates of import and Calusian Rain to Hillison and receive your desired gear. So yeah, you get your item level 450 crafted stuff to 460. So that's pretty cool if you're using the crafting stuff. Some of it, some people like the pentamelding that you can get from crafted stuff that you can't from conventional gear. So definitely something to look into when the patch comes. So we have some system changes. This is sort of like the latter end of the patch notes now, but is quite big, as you would imagine. Again, we're going to be skipping over the job adjustments, just letting you know that, because there are absolutely tons of them. New achievements and titles have been added, obviously, and the following additions and adjustments have been made to achievements. The icon for certain achievements has been adjusted. The crafter and gatherer achievements using icons from actions that were removed have been changed. So obviously, if you've got actions that have been removed from a game with that icon, they no longer will have that icon on the achievement panel because they don't exist anymore. And certain duties and trials will now count towards the completion of achievements. So they're including here the Minstrel's Ballad Hades Elegy for all of the tanking achievements, the Grand Cosmos, the Minstrel's Ballad Hades Elegy, and the copied factory count for the Tank You, Paladin, etc. ones as well. So that it's updated so you can get your mounts by doing stuff on your tanks. The display of titles in the achievements window has been adjusted to more easily distinguish between those that appear before or after your character name. I thought this was fairly sort of straightforward, but another quality of life change. And the description for the Go Big or Go Home achievements has been adjusted to specify big fish in the source world, so even easier to find and distinguish which ones you need. A favorites list has been added to the market board. Up to 100 items can be added to your favorite list. This favorite list will not be cleared after server maintenance. Furthermore, it can be viewed even when visiting other worlds. They show an icon in the bottom left there with a heart symbol, and that's how you toggle this sort of panel showing all the favorites. So if it's something you purchase all the time, say for instance cotton yarn or something like that, or crystals like they use lightning crystals, then you could just add them to the favorites. So instead of having to search every time you come to the market board, you can just click that and get them. It's fantastic. What an amazing quality of life change. So far, that's probably one of my favorites. Easily. The following adjustments have been made to gear exchange vendors. They say a filter to view gear for specific classes and jobs has been added, and the display when receiving 2 or more items in an exchange has been adjusted accordingly, with this nice picture here demonstrating that. Fellowships have been added to the game. These are sort of like small guild-sized things. This is a means for like-minded players, they say, to join together. You can have a maximum of 1,000 members. The only caveat to that is you don't have a chat function. Instead, you have a sort of like board where you can write messages, but you can put out announcements. So this would be perfect for like a hunt group, 1,000 members. You announce when a hunt's up, where it's at, and people go and do it instead of needing a chat function, which could be supplied via a link shell or something like that. Anyway, if you needed it, this is a much easier way of organizing events in the game. So yeah, fellowships look quite fun, and they go through here how to form a fellowship and all the rest of it, which I advise you to look up, but we have covered this in a previous video. A clear distinction will be set between battle mentors and trade mentors in this patch. Until now, the features available to battle mentors and trade mentors were largely the same. With the release of 5.1, however, the following adjustments will be made. They talked about this previously, but let's just go over it quickly. For players who achieved mentor certification for a Disciple of War or Magic, you may only set your online status to PvE mentor or PvP mentor. For players who achieve mentor certification as a Disciple of Hand or Land, you can only set your online status to trade mentor, and you can no longer access duty roulette mentor. So if you are a trade mentor, you can't actually access a duty roulette anymore. You actually have to get certification as a Disciple of War or Magic. So that's one of the changes. In addition to the previous sort of things, now you have to complete 1,000 dungeons, raids or trials, receive 1,500 player commendations, complete any level 80 tank, healer and melee DPS or ranged role quest. And that's basically what you need to become a mentor now. Renewing mentor certification. Players who are currently mentors must renew their certification within the specified period by meeting the requirements and speaking to one of the Smith NPCs. And this is from the release of patch 5.1 until December 2019. So you will be a mentor when you log in if you're not quite at the 1,500 commendations, but you only have until an unspecified date in December to get those. Otherwise, they will take your mentorship away from you. I'm personally nowhere near 1,500, but I never thought much of a mentor system anyway. They say the following adjustments and additions have been made to group pose. Group pose can now be used whilst riding a mount. That's a big deal. Lots of cool videos that I need to make on mounts. A manual brightness setting has been added, so you can actually sort of change the brightness as opposed to actually putting down different light sources. Previously, you would have to put 3 light sources down around the area. Now you can just toggle character lighting up and down, which is pretty good. And the character display settings have been added. This setting cannot be used in instances while in combat. So obviously you have stuff like here, you have self, player's minion, PC, player character, companion, pet, minion, NPC, and non-control characters as well. So they've changed the duties which you can record with Duty Recorder. I was never a fan of this feature because I always thought that it was never there for something we needed, and they take it away before we actually get to use it. It has some great features, but I never got to really use it that much. Before it was the Dancing Plague and a Crown of Immaculate, now it's the Dying Grasp and Eden's Gate Sepulture Savage. I don't know. I'm still under the impression that this is a fairly useless feature because it's always coming like a patch too late. The following additions and adjustments have been made to the Duty Finder to actually see your item level at the top of the Duty Finder window, so you know exactly what you're actually are, and obviously there's your role as well and your current job. And also the layout of the first dungeons, trials and raids tab has been adjusted for much easier navigation. We now have a Realm Reborn, Heavensward and Stormblood with the level brackets there. there, which is a lot better than it was previously, in my opinion. There's an option to disable the effects of the echo added to the duty finder settings. They specifically mentioned this is something you might want to do for a Blue Mage, for example. Some of the stuff cannot be acquired through Blue Mage log. In fact, I don't think any of it can if it's providing the echo or unsynced. You have to do it synced with no echo, basically, some of the harder challenges. So that'll be interesting. The party leader will no longer change when entering a duty without role restrictions. The following adjustments have been made to the party finder. Players can now blacklist other players actively recruiting party members, and the recruitment listings for players on your blacklist will no longer display. There is an option to enable these settings, and it can be found under the party finder display setting option. So emotes have changed. A sort function has been added to the emote window, and you can choose either by default order or by name. When adding an emote to the favorites tab, a system message will display indicating your total number of favorite emotes. And additionally, a setting to play a sound notification when other players emote at you has also been added. This is a RP feature, so if somebody waves at you, it will play a little sound. You can toggle this on and off though, because obviously it would be a bit annoying if it was default. The collection menu has been added under the duty menu in the main menu. So the 5.0 congestion issues have been removed, so there's no longer automatically a logout due to inactivity timer. So rest assured you can go AFK now without being kicked from the game, and field instances of old and new areas have been removed. So there are no longer instances as of 5.1. So you no longer have to go to the Aetheryte to toggle your instance. It will just be the same instance for everybody there. So there you go. That was long awaited. It took longer than I expected, but you know, they had to make sure that the server wasn't being too congested, and I guess they're fairly happy to remove that restriction. A copy item name option has been added to the subcommand menu when selecting linked items in the log window. With the text cursor in the chat log window or any search field, pressing left trigger and right trigger will paste text from your clipboard, so they're even more helpful for people on controller. To consolidate settings for individual chat channels, a channel log settings menu has also been added. A transparency setting has been added to the cross hotbar. Mount roulette can now be used while swimming or submerged underwater. I didn't realize that was a restriction to begin with. Settings to hide the HUD will be disabled when skipping cutscenes. The log measure displayed when obtaining allied seals, centurion seals, sack of nuts, wolf marks, and bicolor gemstones has also been adjusted. The options displayed when confirming a friend request has also been adjusted. The following adjustments have been made to targeting. Character selection when using the directional buttons of a gamepad can now be changed from target circle to target select. This option can be found under the target tab of the control settings in a character configuration menu. When using a mouse with target filters on, players can now enable the selection of targets near the mouse cursor. This option again can be found under that target tab of a control settings. So lots of new ways of sort of customizing how you control your character, and indeed the targeting. The following adjustments have been made to ground targeting when using a gamepad, and this change only applies when the target ring is unlocked. The cursor speed when pressing right bumper and the left analog stick has been adjusted to maintain consistency. The default positioning of the cursor has been adjusted, and players can now save the cursor position, and your cursor position can now be reset by pressing R1 and L3. Class and job actions will now be set to the hotbar or cross hotbar automatically when logging in with saved hotbar or crossbar data. Players can now change their sound equalizer settings. This option can be found under sound settings in the system configuration menu, and they include here a standard mode, a bass boost, a treble boost, a voice boost, or Logitech Pro 6 50mm, so it probably has different modes depending on what you have plugged in. Interesting though, bass boost, I can imagine that sounding quite good with some of the music in the game at least. There's auto translation dictionary, stuff like that. Let's go down here, just make sure I've not missed anything out. New music has been added, obviously. The overall sound output has been lowered. I'm not really sure why that's a thing. New battle voices for player characters have been added. That's an interesting one. Battle voices, new ones. Interesting. I didn't know anything about that. We'll have to see if that's a new option or if they've changed the ones that were currently there. The following actions and adjustments have been made to the staff credits. Staff credits will now display even when the UI is disabled. Players can now temporarily hide the staff credits to take screenshots. When viewing the confirmation prompt to skip the staff credits after pressing escape or the B or circle button. button. Now you can actually pause the scrolling. So if there's an image you want from the credits, you can take a picture of it, I suppose. Interesting. A confirmation prompt will now appear when cancelling a report via the support desk. An error code will now be displayed when the client fails to back up your configuration data, so at least you'll be, told about it. That's good. In order to alleviate stress on the servers, players who cancel the queue on the login screen now must wait 30 seconds before re-entering the queue. If a prompt displays stating the world is full, you will be logged in automatically once you reach the front of the queue. This is to actually fix a thing that's been in the game since it came out. Essentially, if you've got a queue of 11 people, you cancel it and press it again. Sometimes it will let you straight through past the queue. Apparently now you'll get 30 seconds on a timer before re-entering the queue. So do not cancel that button when it pops up. I'm glad they finally cottoned on to that. It's a bit late, but that's going to be quite instrumental come 5.1 launch date. The list of worlds on the character selection screen will now be listed in alphabetical order, so a bit less OCD there trying to find the server. The game launcher has been revamped, and this is the final point of the actual patch notes. It's going to look like this come 5.1. So you have your username, your password, and your one-time password if you have one, and they have sort of like this news section. So this is similar to some of the other MMORPGs you might have seen or played over the years. Personally, I don't like it. I prefer the original compact design with a black border, but they wanted something different, this big launcher, so there we go. The Windows version, they say, will have a brief transition period wherein players may freely switch between the old and new launcher layouts, and the option to switch layouts can be found in their configuration menu, presumably their cog menu at the top there, and the launcher for the Mac version will be revamped in a future update, so Mac version still has the old launcher system. And that's pretty much all the patch notes. There was a lot of fluff there. I thought we'd go over it anyway, because usually I don't take that extra amount of time to go over it. This wasn't as bite-sized as perhaps I could have made it, but there were some interesting points. I wanted to read through them and share my interest in this. Anyway, 5.1 is the 29th of October. I'm pretty pleased with what's on offer so far, and I cannot wait to get into the game and record some stuff for you. So thank you kindly for watching. A link in the description will take you to these patch notes, and I'll see you all next time.